Okay, here we are, Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press, here in Foley Square. Today, Wednesday, September 20th, 2023. We're covering the courts yesterday in the building behind me on this side, 40 Foley. The appeal was heard of the detention in the MDC of Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX. His lawyers said it's a huge problem. Actually, the legal issue was whether the remand had been correct, whether it somehow violated the First Amendment. The judge's questioning seemed to indicate that if you, for example, if you just threaten somebody with a gun, said, "I will rob you," that's not protected by the First Amendment. We'll get to the First Amendment in a moment. They tried to also bring in the lack of internet, and surprisingly, one of the Second Circuit judges was like, is the internet in the MDC? No, the internet is not in the MDC. What happens is that all the other defendants are there without the internet. Maybe a few just before trial get an air-gapped laptop, but Bankman-Fried is brought over to the taller building behind me, 500 Pearl, where he can use the internet, but he doesn't think it's fast enough. Anyway, his trial is slated to go on October 3rd, and we're fully committed to be covering it. Stephen Bouyer, former congressman of Indiana, 22 months he got. Long sentencing. He was pretty, either he was combative or arrogant, however you want to say it. He said, "I'm not going to speak because I'm going to be appealing. I've done nothing but great things throughout my life." His lawyers were his mouthpiece, and they said he's just a fabulous guy. There was a fentanyl case, and I have to say, there was a daycare in the Bronx on Morris Avenue where a child died, a 1-year-old child died because the place had a kilo press and a kilo of fentanyl, and it was put under the mat. It's shocking. I covered it all day yesterday. And now it's early because I'm heading up to UN World. More on that or not, maybe another vlog later in the day. But I have to say, these problems, even as simple as fentanyl in New York City, can and should be blamed on the United Nations. Why? Because the United Nations, well, they have a drug organization, pro-drug, by the way. I once uncovered cocaine in the UN mailing room before I was thrown out of the UN. Kilos. But Antonio Guterres has essentially sold the organization to China, and the problem is the visitors from D.C. this week haven't really done much about it. They've tried to show how well they get along and play. Well, how well they get along and play is proved by the pudding of a 1-year-old Bronx baby dead. Inner City Press, to be continued.